Welcome to Crazy Calm TV. Susan MacTavish Best is on the show. Susan is one of my favorite people. And I'm going to start off with a well-deserved compliment. You're a hard person to describe. In your own words, Susan, what do you do?
I host salons on different topics.
Okay. Fair enough. You bring people together. I mean, you also received a grant for curious people.
I did. POSTHOC did, my company. We received a grant from the Templeton World Charity Foundation to build a community of curious people around the world. And that's what we do. Okay. Stimulate conversation, put people together, either digitally online or in person from all different backgrounds with all different points of views, and multi-generational too, which I feel like there's not so many opportunities that I run into anymore. Maybe church was a place, it used to be a place where you can have a great span of like 60 or 65 years of folks who are participating in something.
I think that's really, really important. So even when I was growing up, it's, the 17-year-olds hang out with the 17-year-olds, but in other countries and other times you have the cousin, the friend, the 30-year-old, the 18-year-old, the 45-year-old, and passing information between generations is more important than ever.
Right. I mean, I don't know if you ever went sort of camping in the summer with a family and that's a time where you do see multi-generations. I'm just sort of thinking this as summer is coming around in California, and there's those old school family camps, but for the most part, not really anymore, which is a shame.
Yeah. And so, okay, curious people. I think a lot of curious people are going to watch this episode. What I wanted to do today, Susan, is look at your business first, and then look for people listening that are trying to make a change in their life. We spoke before the show, and it was a pretty effortless change for you, but hosting in-person salons, you've moved everything digital for the time being.
Yes. I mean, there wasn't much else to do. I mean, one could sit it out, but I love meeting people and throwing out questions to them and interviewing folks. And it just made sense. So we host salons in person, and we will always host salons in person once we can gather again. And for your audience who wouldn't know really what I mean by a salon, we invite about 100 people, invite only. There's a specific topic. It might be drinking scotch on Mars. So maybe it's a scotch tasting and how to live on Mars. And I cook for everyone, and it's usually my own recipes. So I'm giving something to everyone, all the guests, and then I interview one or two people, and we have live music. But as I told you earlier, we were already recording the salons, the in-person ones, and it's such great, fresh content. So it made sense for us just to move it online. The only thing that's not happening now is I'm not cooking for 100 people.
Right. And so again, with these salons, which is still, I think, a foreign concept to a lot of people that haven't experienced that, or maybe under a different name. You're very unique, but I mean, you mentioned, I think a very famous salon was the one with, you connected, Tim Ferriss and Michael Pollan.
Oh, no. I didn't connect those two, but I did salons with both of them. I did Tim Ferriss, who I know I guess he's an Austin fellow now.
Right.
Tim Ferriss and Dean Karnassus, the ultra runner who ran 50 marathons in 50 days in 50 states. And the topic was going to extremes. Funny enough, I actually just interviewed Dean a couple of weeks ago because running has taken off during COVID very enthusiastically. And so I wanted to touch base with him again. So, okay. Yeah. And I also did interview Michael Pollan when he was just thinking about writing a book on psychedelics.
Yeah, I read the book. I enjoyed it. And so connecting all these people. So how should I put this? People pay you to put together events that can bring together curious and creative people that can somehow advance them. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I would look at it as it's a way of getting ideas out there, right? And for example, we work with better.com, which is the home buying company. And, for them, we are putting together a series. We've started a series on reimagining the American dream, a topic that's important to the CEO, Vishal. He's an immigrant. And, what is the American dream now? And so they underwrite a series, and they also have an opportunity to meet all these interesting folks. And it's a mix of press and CEOs and various sorts of, I don't really like the word influencers, but curious people, and putting them all in a room together to talk about something that's important and actually extremely important right now. So yeah,
it's interesting. When I was trying to create my notes and questions, like influencers, I didn't want to use the word networking. It has another stigma to it.
Yeah, and I think, and it's definitely, I don't think when folks come over, there's not, it's definitely not a very networking vibe. I never go to any networking events myself. It's different because it's always typically in my home, and I'm cooking for people and I have an apron on, and there's a good chance that you're going to probably have to sit on the floor. So yeah, it doesn't feel too networky.
So when I look at you right now and just thinking about you in general, I think about abundance. I mean, literally you have a grant to connect people, curious people for ideas, but the whole ethos of there's always more ideas, there's always opportunities, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so many ideas are really crappy, but, one never has I don't have a shortage of ideas. It's called Ideaphoria, flow of ideas.
Ideaphoria. What are some of the most interesting ideas you've had over the, since the COVID unleashed itself on the world?
I'm not sure I've had any great ideas. I've been interviewing everyone else who has wonderful ideas.
That's okay too. Ideas you've heard.
But, initially, actually, like right in the very beginning, I mean, not that this was a great idea. And I think with ideas, right, you kind of bash around and you get one, that's good and you keep running with it. But right at the very beginning, we weren't really sure how long lockdown was going to be. And I think we thought it was going to be a week or two. My team in New York, we're going to fly out here to LA in this very large warehouse. And we were like, let's just film everything we do all weekend and see what happens. Everything from, kind of mukbang. Is that what they're called? Mukbang dinners, where people are eating and you video folks eating dinner.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's popular on I might be mispronouncing it, on YouTube, to me cooking in the kitchen and coming up with recipes that you can do in the pantry, to doing digital salons, to getting DJs to spin. Now, obviously, they weren't able to come out, but we have sort of run with it, and that we are doing the digital salons. I'm having to do most of it here, and the team is in the various places that they are, and we are having musicians. So I'm not sure it's any wild idea, but we're doing it, and we started doing it really quickly.
So that's key. That the fact that you take action, whether it's probably not the best idea. I mean, it's a very subjective thing to say what is the best or a mediocre idea. But the fact that you were able to act so quickly after this hit and adjust, not everyone's able to do that. And there was a lot of stress and anxiety around this, global shift.
I mean, we did it within 2 days, and the thinking for that was, why not? Also, the bar is pretty low, initially, and the bar is getting higher and higher with each week, and people are getting exhausted with Zoom and digital and what have you. But I was like, let's start right from the beginning, because 2 months from now, you're then maybe going to try and be perfect. And I think that probably translates to, anytime you're doing a startup, just get started with it. Don't keep waiting for perfection to start, because you're going to screw up. So screw up as soon as possible.
And I don't know if you self-described or a publication said that, but you said that, perfection is the enemy of good, or like Martha Stewart without the perfection.
Something like that. Oh yeah, that's right. And I might own the domain. I can't remember what it's called, like Perfectly Imperfect or something. Yes. Anyway, I'm pretty messy. My hair is messy a lot of the time. My house is messy.
Oh, you're a good fit for the show. I haven't gotten my hair cut in a while.
Okay. Perfectly imperfect. life is messy. So it's just easier to start low and maybe you'll surprise people.
Now, let me ask you a question. So I was watching this morning. It's pretty cool. I'll link to it in the show notes. It was like a New York Times, not YouTube, like a New York Times Facebook video. And someone came to the kitchen you were at in New York, and you said, this is July 2016. So think about that date. And you said, quote, this is a direct Susan quote, "The world is a bit wobbly right now." So for my first question to that, I have a two-part question is, what did you mean by that in July 2016?
Oh, I mean, I don't sound like it, but I grew up in Scotland. So I think that's probably a pretty British term that you use with children. Like when your lower lip wobbles and your chin wobbles, you're about to cry. Life is unexpected. It's like we were just saying, it's certainly not perfect and it's wobbly. So we're definitely in a very wobbly period right now, and people feel wobbly. People are bursting into tears at the most unexpected moments,
Now, have you had any moments where we were stressed out by what's going on?
Not as a result of COVID, more just no, I haven't. Yeah, not really. I mean, you worry about the business. I think we all worry about the business, but I really believe in myself. And I think I actually, I've said this to a few friends, I think I tend to do better in a crisis than in day to day. But I'm pretty steady. I've spent a lot of time on my own, and I haven't spent until recently much time out in nature. And that bums me out, but I've been pretty steady. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what. So, I mean, you are a very well-connected person, right? We were talking before the show how you went to kind of like a Peter Thiel, who I see kind of as a philosopher more than an investor. Business Weekend all around the world. But I mean, you have friends in all sorts of parts of the world, and I'm guessing some people have come to you asking for advice or help during this time. Assuming that's true, what is some of, without getting too specific or sharing anything too personal, what's some of the advice you've given to people?
Well, I'm not sure that anyone has, but I mean, I think really just what I said about how I feel like I've been is to just be steady. And obviously, I've worked in media, I worked in PR for a long time and had a PR agency. And I think, and we all know this, I've definitely advised people to take media, have a diet of media. Don't be constantly refreshing, the Times or the Wall Street Journal or what have you multiple times a day. And just maybe like slow down. You can't bully your way through a virus, really, or a pandemic, in the same way that you can't really bully a wave when you're surfing, I don't think.
Right. Now, that's interesting. So I'll share. I mean, I realize I've gone through way too much media consumption these days. I used to pride myself on not, but whatever. I'm human. I'm perfect. And I just see myself waking up at night sometimes thinking about like counter arguments to people on Twitter. And I know it's not the best behavior, but it's tough sometimes. It's tough.
It's so hard not to. And we all have points of views and we're all getting angry. And I've been a little bit disappointed in myself for not reading as much as I normally do. I mean, I'm reading in preparation for the salons we're doing, and that's fantastic. But I also tend to read books a lot. And I settled into bed last night and I started reading a book or picked up a book. And I was like, yes, I just need to do this more, a little bit more of this and a little bit less of refreshing the news.
And when you say reading for salons, are you reading books by authors that are participating in them?
Yeah, exactly. Or whatever the topic might be. Over the next week, the topics are food. I don't need to prepare too much, I don't think, other than thinking of some recipes. Sex. We're going to have the executive director of the Kinsey Institute. So that'll be fun. I'll read up on that. And let's see what else. Sugar. Robert Lustig, who's an endocrinologist. So, they're varied topics. And it's, how great to get to read up on those topics.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a book about it, but related to sugar, one of my favorite books is called Salt, A World History.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember I can't remember the name of the fellow, the name. He also wrote a book about oysters.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The oysters were so long off of Long Island. They were like this big. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, and so I'll definitely link to that book in the show notes, but it's very cool to tell I mean, you're a food person, telling the history through the lens of an ingredient. And I think sugar, I think a lot about Cuba. I've been actually I read a really fascinating book about kind of the post-Cuban revolution, the Cuban Americans that came after Castro took power. But it's like early 1900s, right? Cuba was the sugar producer. And obviously today they're not. But that's cool. And I think I'm also excited that you're putting a lot of these salons online for people to see.
Yeah. I mean, the interest in the sugar, I'm going to be speaking with a fellow called Robert Lustig, and I don't know if your audience will remember, if you remember, because it was some years ago. He was on the cover, I think, of the New York Times Magazine. He did a video that went viral. It wasn't on YouTube, but it was at a UCSF where, he was really just saying how bad sugar is for us, or large consumptions of it. And it became so interesting, of course, because there's so much lobbying around sugar in drinks and in food and in school lunches. And I thought, given what's going on with COVID and a lot of the pre-existing conditions, both being type 2 diabetes and folks who are overweight, it was an interesting topic and a timely one to revisit with him.
I think that's really important. I saw an article, I believe in the Washington Post, that was talking about younger people having like strokes from COVID, and they were putting healthy. And I found that in certain circles, I don't know if it has to do with PC or whatever, but they'll say someone's healthy even if they're obese. But I think it's very important to talk about the downsides of obesity, which again does not make you a better or worse person, but it's a serious health risk.
It's a serious health risk, and also extremely political too, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll be more educated on this by next week when I interview him. But there is, of course, so much lobbying that goes on around that, and the amount of sugar that's allowed to be in a school lunch or what have you, and the addictive qualities of it. He wrote another book, and I'm going to forget the name of it, where it was speaking about the difference between dopamine, which is addictive sugar, or serotonin, which is that nice,
the runner's high,
happy feeling that you have when you're around your friends or speaking to someone, and it's not addictive. So yeah, I think it's a really important topic to talk about right now. So
I like that, dopamine versus serotonin. I'll
send you a link to the book. Yeah, it's a great topic.
Wow. Okay. And so Susan,
yes,
okay, I believe, and you mentioned, people are going to still crave human contact.
We're humans, of course they're going.
We're humans,
that makes
sense.
A question. I'm sorry. You know what? Like, people might be feeling pretty hormonal soon too. You know what I mean? Like, humans want to jump on other humans.
Totally.
We can guarantee that. Yeah.
So, okay. Do you think there's going to be some adjustments to the new world after let's say things reopen? Do you expect any major adjustments?
I mean, I assume you're meaning before there's a vaccine that comes out. I think it also sort of, it's going to be personal. It depends on where you live. San Francisco, which, had lockdown very early, and people are terrified of death in Silicon Valley, and they might react in a different way, and their behavior might be very different than, say, folks in Tallahassee, Florida. Sure. So I think it's going to be, localized, the way the behavior, how the behavior's different, and also age-wise, right? I mean, people are going to look, and if you're like 19 years old and you're sick of being at home with your parents, and you thought you were going to go away to college, and the stats aren't really showing that too many people who are 19 years old are dying of COVID, you might go to an underground rave this summer. just saying that getting back into underground raves might be a business. I mean, I'm not advocating that, but they certainly might pop up this summer, because young people really want to be around each other, and they're going to look at the stats and probably think, I'm not likely to die. Yeah. And they might not have known anyone who's gotten sick or passed away.
Yeah. And I
don't know.
think,
I'm just, that's a guess. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that is a guess.
but yeah, I mean, this is important. Just sharing these ideas and
I think weather, and I'm sure economists are predicting this and what have you. I mean, what happens if LA is pretty spread out, but
right.
Let's say New York. Well, New Yorkers are terrified, and kind of with good reason. But again, imagine the stats go down in New York, or they go down really down in LA, and it's a heat wave of a summer where for like 2 weeks it's 105 degrees. Yeah, people aren't going to be staying inside. They're going to be outside. They're going to be drinking something icy and alcoholic, and they're going to be hanging out with their friends. So it's a little hard also to predict that sort of behavior,
Right. Okay. Now, in looking at it from another angle, right, I think there's over 30 million unemployment claims. Susan, I mean, growing up, like, you have such an interesting, I mentioned this, unabashed compliments and sincere compliments for you, but you have a very atypical career, right? This is not something that, someone said, what do you want to be? It's like, I want to connect people, curious people with ideas in salons, right? Yeah. So you literally created this career, right? And lifestyle. There's no doubt about it in my mind personally, and feel free to disagree, that a lot of other people are going to have to reinvent themselves, and their path may not be switching from, finance to engineering, which is perfectly fine. But a lot of people do not fit in those types of molds. And I think there's more types of kind of uncharted career, not even paths, just different types of careers. Yeah. So how do you, if someone's watching right now and they've lost their job and they were doing X for their whole life, they want to do something different, how do they develop the confidence and the awareness to take a different path?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is starting at home with yourself. So it's hard to feel confident if you're not looking after yourself. And that's always been pretty important to me. And certainly at a time like, right now. So that would be my first recommendation, is look after yourself, because if you look after yourself, you're well positioned to believe in yourself more and feel good when you wake up in the morning. Don't be drinking 2 bottles of wine every night, because COVID might be around here for a while. So look after yourself, get fresh air, be out in nature. I think that's always so important in terms of feeling level in the world. And the world, as we said earlier, is wobbly. And then I think, there's a lot of just like having to put away your ego and always keep your eyes open for opportunities and asking questions. And again, I think, that's being curious. Where are there opportunities? Where could you jump on something? Where could you volunteer to do something? There's 26 million, I guess, now who have applied for unemployment. That's probably changed this morning. What's today? Thursday.
I think it's over 30 million. Because the number just came out.
30 million, right? So it's another 4 this week. There's always opportunity. And I think we're going to see, as always, when times go down like this economically, entrepreneurs are going to suddenly sprout out. So just keep your eyes open for the opportunities and don't have a big ego. This is not a good time for a big ego. Yeah.
And I think being able to check your ego can make you less afraid and more willing to take a risk. Cause and again, I'm not above this, but I've dealt with my own imposter syndrome stuff before.
I mean,
but it's like, usually to take those risks, you have to check your ego in order to do it.
And it's hard to not care what other people think. I mean, even just sort of suddenly being like, okay, we're going to do digital salons and I'm going to talk into a camera, and who says I can do that? But you sort of just have to plow ahead sometimes.
You know what gives me confidence is
Tell me.
all the complexities right now, Susan, and that even very accomplished experts, and it's not a detriment to them, but it just shows how complex the world is with all these predictions that did not ring true with the coronavirus. And that to me gives me confidence and say, hey, the experts are not as expert as you think. There's this authoritative bias. You're probably an expert in something, but it's latent, and you can bring that out.
Yeah, for sure. I at the beginning of this, and not so much, but I noticed all the books next to my bed yesterday. I wanted to catch up on some ancient history, and I was like, well, what was going on in Athens and Rome, and what was the difference between the two? And you go back and you start reading ancient history, and you're like, oh, makes you feel very small because things really aren't all that different. There was always big disasters happening, and leaders thinking they were right, and times haven't changed that much.
Yeah, like the fall of the Roman Republic, right? There was a lot of debt building up, forgiving debt. Yeah, some of the same things that are happening right now. Yeah, and I guess history can be comforting in that aspect, and also maybe lower the ego as well.
Yeah, it certainly makes you feel a whole lot smaller. I found, I was like, oh no, I just feel like we're so insignificant, and maybe that's a good thing. Then you lose a little less sleep when you feel insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
Now, Susan,
yes,
someone watching right now, they're like, I like connecting people. And I think people might be doing salons right now, but they just don't even know it. I mean, they're connecting people on Zoom, or you mentioned StreamYard and Blue Jeans. I'll link again, all of this. But for someone that said, hey, maybe I could do a salon for the engineering industry or the nursing industry, something like that. What are for a digital salon, what are some tips you have for people to put on a successful digital salon?
Sure. Well, start a document of your ideas of what might be good topics, and just read a lot, or whatever it is you need to do. I wouldn't really know what an engineer would need to do, but educate yourself, read a lot, look at different points of views, and put all those ideas for potential salons into a document. And then the technology is important, just at the very base level, and we're improving it step by step. And of course, it's not like I can have someone come in and set up the video camera and what have you. So that has been a good thing, having to learn and get techie again. But at the bare minimum, step it up from getting like, a webcam, make the experience good for the audience. It doesn't need to be perfect, but just little bit by bit, as you get more comfortable using whatever the technology is that you're videoing with, make sure you get a microphone. I should have headphones on right now because it would make the audio, I think, probably better for you, but I don't. I have a webcam, but over there I have a very fancy camera, which I'll be learning how to use, and just constantly, improve it, which I think is what you're always trying to do, no matter what activity you're doing, to some extent.
Let me put that in a different way, what you just said. I appreciate that. So for those that are working from home, or everyone's going to have more video calls, a lot of people will spend a lot of time on their appearance, suits, a memo by suits, and women will
really are people wearing
no. Let me sorry. In the pre-COVID world, if you're working, right? Yeah. But so think of it this way: like if this for a while is going to be the new reality, and a lot of companies are going to do a lot more remote work, I think, regardless.
Okay, yeah.
So just think about that like as your office. So you can buy lights on Amazon for $70. Set up lights. You mentioned the microphone.
Yeah.
I mean, a Logitech webcam is better than nothing. But if and if you're doing sales, I think it's a no-brainer. You can spend a couple $100 and really improve the way you look on camera.
Yeah, I mean, I know we talked about this earlier. I started spending a lot of time on Twitch and looking at what gamers were doing, because gamers have been doing this for a while. And if you're not a gamer, you haven't been paying attention to this world. And you're like, wow, their video is really good. The quality is good. And so I went onto YouTube, and I've spent a lot of time watching videos on YouTube, and this has been a good resource. I'm sure there's many of them, but I've been looking at a company called Think Media.
Okay.
I don't know them. I've just been watching their YouTube videos, and they have so many tips on how to just step up your game a little bit, from super budget to like under $100 to really fancy. And I think everyone should be educating themselves on this. So, you start with a Logitech camera, and then you step it up to a $200, $300 camera, you get a microphone. So go on YouTube. There's so many videos on there for YouTube stars and influencers, and now everyone should be watching that. I've found that, we have musicians on and have been having some performances. I think because musicians have been making their money, they do everything live. they are not all that well prepared. But I'm sure a year from now, everyone's going to be much better online. It will be a better experience.
Sure. And I thought about musicians, like, and I saw one of your songs, you had a DJ. I just think that at least right now with technology, it's just not the same as in person, right? That can't be, there's just something about seeing live music in person that right now cannot be, that you can't recreate on the internet. But again, I know other people are thinking, how do we take that online experience to the next level? And I mean, even starting with lights, microphone, maybe try and Zoom alternatives, which we're doing this interview on, and it's worked great for me so far. So I'm not criticizing Zoom, but understanding that people are going to try to push the limits there and improve that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a lot of it as well is, I'm just looking at a computer, a 27-inch computer screen, and I'm in this very big, massive room, and we had meant to put up a big screen here for showing movies, and I don't have a TV, and so that's how I would watch, Netflix or what have you. And I keep thinking, gosh, I should still do that, because that would make the experience of my friend Lena DJing really like she's in the room if she's up on a big screen. And I'm sure people are going to be changing their own experience as the audience as well. Okay,
I'm going to try to sum up the things we talked about today. So for people listening, I think the Ideaphoria, writing down ideas, journaling, taking action, and checking, this is probably oversimplified, but checking ego and taking action, improving the digital appearance stuff, and placing little bets on how the future is going to adjust, and putting yourself out there. I mean, it seems like the general but good advice for people that need to make a change and reinvent themselves.
Yeah, thank you so much for throwing out some questions to me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Susan, likewise. And
I can't wait to try the new coffee.
Yeah, hopefully it's there. And Susan, it's a pleasure as always. And listeners, we'll link to, in the show notes here on YouTube, we'll link to POSTHOC as well as any streaming channels you have, so people can check out the salons that you.
Thank you. Yeah, we just started. This is very humbling. We've been on Facebook forever, so I have lots of, I have a big community there. So, but we just started a new YouTube channel, and we've not been very good at marketing that. So that's been. It's good to constantly have to learn, and you got to keep the ego in checked.
Oh yeah, I had I won't mention the person's name, but when I was doing some Bitcoin related podcasts, I interviewed someone who's a really high level person, and I didn't have my the power cable to my laptop plugged in, and I lost the whole recording. I remember having to say, "Hey, listen, great interview, but we got to do it again." But like, these things happen, so it's like, everyone makes mistakes on this stuff, and there's inevitable technical difficulties.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So, well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, Matt.